Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Read With Me. I'm yours truly, Isabel Liddell. I'm one of the founders here at Billionairette, and I'm so excited to be here with you. If you haven't heard, you probably will hear it soon. But today we actually started the day a little bit heavy. One of our mentors, one of our North Stars, has passed today. His name is Bob Proctor. And we just wanted to take this moment and really dedicate today with the intention that he shares and all of the principles that he's really been able to teach us throughout the years. I believe, Bob Proctor was actually one of the first guys in my life to teach me about belief, the ability to believe in what you want. I remember watching Think and Grow Rich, or The Secret, Think and Grow Rich was the book that I read after. But after watching The Secret, I was like, everything is possible. Like, why was I ever worried? It's obviously available, attainable, and achievable. So everything is an opportunity. Like, you literally have everything at the tips of your fingertips. It's just how will you get it? And then that is the belief, and also the paradigm shifts that he teaches on, the repetition of things. One of the things that I love about Vanessa, my partner, when she gets hooked on something, like when she really wants to learn something, she is the queen of repetition. She is relentless when it comes to repetition. And because I am completely different, I love variety, I love adventure, I love trying new things and constantly be moving and, constantly have new things coming in. Repetition has been one of the lessons for me that has been hard to understand and grasp. But as I grow older and wiser, and I really do have to put in repetition and the reps in to really get the results that I want, both in the physical world and in the mental, emotional, entrepreneurial space. I really do see how valuable and how timeless his teachings are. So I really wanted to take this moment and just share my love for Bob. He's amazing, and I really wanted to just be intentional about today's reading because I do want to dedicate it to him and all the amazing things that he's shared with us. So without further ado, I wanted to share that we're going to be diving into the cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki. So transitioning into Robert's amazing book here. It's been amazing. If you haven't checked out the other Read With Me sessions, make sure to go check them out. They're really, really powerful. The first book that we read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was like an overview of, what we're really getting into right now. And then this book, what Robert is really doing is just going into the nitty-gritty, breaking down the paradigms of, the employee mindset, the self-employed mindset, the business owner, and the investor, and how to transition into the right side of the quadrant to really propel you forward and maximize your life, so you can really start leveraging the opportunities that are all over, and you can really grab it. And just one more thing about Bob Proctor: if you thinketh in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. And I'll start with that because it's so true. All right. Without further ado, shall we start? Shall we begin? shall we take this amazing opportunity and start? All right. So, chapter 3, why people choose freedom, why people choose security over freedom. Okay, couldn't even read that word, security. Okay. All right, awesome. So let's get into it. Many people seek job security because that's what they are taught, both at school and at home. Both of my dads recommended that I go to college and get a degree. But it was after receiving the degree that their advice took different paths. My highly educated dad constantly advised, hey, go to school, get good grades, and then get a good, safe, and secure job. He was recommending a life focused on the left side of the cash flow quadrant that looks like this. And he shares this diagram. All up in the left side with the E and the S. Their advice was different because one dad was concerned with job security and the other was focused on financial freedom. So why do people seek job security? The primary reason many people seek job security is because that's what they are taught to seek, both at school and at home. As adults, millions of people still continue to follow that advice. Many of us are conditioned from our earliest days to think about job security rather than financial security or financial freedom. And because most of us learn little to nothing about money at home or at school, it's only natural that we cling ever more tightly to the idea of job security instead of reaching for freedom. If you look at the cash flow quadrant, you'll notice that the left side is motivated by security and the right side is motivated by freedom. And he shows this diagram. Okay. Trapped by freedom, he says. The main reason that 90% of the population is working on the left side is because that's the side that they learned about in school. After leaving school, they end up with lots of expenses that may fall into debt. This means they must cling ever tighter to a job or a professional security just to pay the bills. I often meet young people who receive their college diploma along with the bill for their college loans. Several of them told me that they're depressed when they see that they are in debt thousands and thousands of dollars for their college education. If their parents paid the bill, then the parents are actually strapped financially for years. Most Americans today will receive a credit card while still in school and will be in debt for the rest of their lives. That's because they're often following a script that became extremely popular in the industrial age. Following the script. If we track the life of an average educated person, the financial script often goes like this. The child goes to school, graduates, finds a job, and soon has some money to spend. The young adult now can afford to rent an apartment, buy electronics, new clothes, some furniture, and of course, a car. Soon, the bills begin to come in. One day, the adult meets someone special and sparks fly. They fall in love and get married. For a while, life is blissful because two can live as cheaply as one. With only one rent to pay, they can afford to set a few dollars aside to buy the dream of all young couples, their own home. They find a house, pull their money out of the savings and use it for a down payment. Now they have a mortgage because they have a new house. They need new furnishings, so they find a furniture store that advertises those magic words: no money down, easy monthly payments. Life is wonderful, and they throw a party to have all their friends over to see their new house, new car, new furniture, and new toys. They're already deeply in debt, and the first child arrives. After dropping the child off at nursery school, the average couple must now put their nose to the grindstone and go to work. They become trapped by the need for job security simply because, on average, they're less than 3 months away from financial bankruptcy. These people will often say, I can't afford to quit. I have bills to pay. the success trap. One of the reasons I learned so much from my rich dad was because he had the free time to teach me. As he grew more successful, he had more free time and money. His business got better, but he didn't have to work harder. He simply had his president expand the system and hire more people to do the work. If his investments did well, he reinvested the money and made more money. Instead of working, he spent hours with his son and me explaining to us everything he was doing in business and investing. I was learning more from him than I was learning at school. That's what happens when you work hard on the right side of the cash flow quadrant, the B and I side. My highly educated dad worked hard too, but he worked hard on the left side. By working hard, getting promoted, and taking on more responsibility, he had less and less free time to spend with his kids. He would leave for work at 7 a.m., and many times we wouldn't even see him because he had to go to bed before he got home. We had to go to bed before he got home. That's what happens when you work hard and become successful in the E and S quadrants. Success brings you less time, even if it does bring more money. The money trap. Success on the B and I side requires a particular kind of knowledge about money called financial intelligence. Rich Dad said that financial intelligence determined not so much how much money you make, but how much money you keep, how hard that money works for you, and how many generations you can keep it. Let me read that again for everyone. Rich Dad said that the financial intelligence determined not so much how much money you make, but how much money you can keep, how hard that money can work for you, and how many generations you can keep it. Success on the right side requires financial intelligence. If people lack basic financial intelligence, they'll find it hard to survive on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. My rich dad was good with money and with people at work. He had to be. He was responsible for creating money, managing as few people as possible, keeping costs low, and keeping them profits high. Those are the skills necessary for success on the right side. It was my rich dad who stressed that your home is not an asset, but a liability. He could prove it just simply by looking at the numbers. My educated dad didn't manage money and people at work, although he thought he did. As the state superintendent of education, he was a government official with a multi-million-dollar budget and thousands of employees, but it was not money he created. It was the taxpayers' money, and his job was to spend all of it. If he didn't spend it, the government would give him less money the next year. So at the end of each fiscal year, his goal was to deplete his budget, which meant he often hired more people to justify the next year's budget. The funny thing was that the more people he hired, the more problems he had. As a young boy observing both fathers, I began to take mental notes of what kind of life I wanted to lead. My educated dad was a voracious reader of books. So he was word literate, but he was not financially literate. Because he couldn't read numbers on a financial statement, he had to take the advice of his banker and accountant, and both told him that his house was an asset and that it should be his largest investment. You can be book smart, but you got to learn the numbers, Some of it, you would call this street smart, okay? Because street, you got to learn how the deals flow, what's happening on the street, what's a dollar to you, what's the dollar to me, what's a $20 bill, what's a $20 bill, how can you read numbers? Strong. Because of this financial advice, not only did my highly educated dad work harder, he also got further in debt. Every time he received a promotion for his hard work, he also got a pay raise. And with each pay raise, he went into a higher tax bracket. Because he was in a high tax bracket and taxes for high income workers in the 1960s and 1970s were extremely high, his accountant and banker would tell him, hey, buy a house, buy a bigger one, so you can write it off as interest payments. He made more money, but all that happened was that his taxes increased and his debt also increased. The more successful he got, the harder he had to work, and the less time he actually had with the people he loved. Soon, all the children were gone, and he was still working hard just to keep up with the bills. He always thought that the next promotion and pay raise would solve his problem. But the more money he made, the more the same things happened. He got deeper into debt and paid more in taxes. The more frazzled he got, both at home and at work, the more he seemed to be dependent on job security. The more emotionally attached he got to his job and to a paycheck to pay the bills, the more he encouraged his kids, get a safe, secure job. The more insecure he felt, the more he sought security. It's literally just a trap. I mean, as I'm reading this, I can see like just the hamster wheel, you know? Your two biggest expenses. Because my dad couldn't read financial statements, he failed to see the money trap he was getting sucked into as he grew more successful. It's the same money trap I see millions of other successful, hardworking people fall into. The reason so many people struggle financially is because every time they make more money, they also increase their two biggest expenses, taxes and interest on debt. To top it all off, the government often offers you tax breaks to get into deeper debt. Doesn't that make you feel a little suspicious though? At the end of my hardworking, educated dad's life, the little money he did have left to pass on was taken by the government in probate taxes. That sucks. The search for freedom. I know that many people search for freedom and happiness. The problem is that most people haven't been trained to work from the B and I quadrants. They have been trained instead to search for a job and their security. Because of this training and their increasing debt, most people limit their search for financial freedom to the left side of the cash flow quadrant. Unfortunately, financial security and financial freedom are seldom found in the E and S quadrant. True security and freedom are only found on the right side. Oof. Getting from job to job in search of freedom. One thing the cash flow quadrant is useful for is to track or observe a person's life pattern. Many people spend their life in search of security or freedom, but wind up instead going from job to job. For example, I have a friend from high school who I hear from about every 5 years. He is always excited because he has found the perfect job and the perfect company of his dreams. He loves the company, it's doing exciting things, he loves his work, and he has an important title. The pay is great and the people are great, the benefits are great, and his chances for promotion are great. About 4.5 years later, I hear from him again. Only this time he's dissatisfied. The company he works for is now corrupt and dishonest. And in his opinion, it doesn't treat its workers with respect. He hates his boss. He was passed over for a promotion and they don't pay him enough. 6 months go by and he's happy again because he's found a new job. And the cycle starts anew. His life path looks something like a dog chasing its tail. It looks like this. And he shows a little diagram of literally in the E quadrant. It's the cycle. It goes around and around and around and around. Okay. His life pattern is going from job to job. So far, he lives well because he's smart, attractive, and personable. but the years are catching up with him. The younger people are now getting the jobs he used to get. He has a few $1,000s in savings, nothing set aside for retirement, a house he'll never own, child support payments, a college yet to pay for, and his youngest child, which is 8 years old, lives with his ex-wife, and his oldest child, whom is 14, lives with him. He used to always say to me, "I don't have to worry, I'm still young, I have time." I wonder if he's still saying that now. In my opinion, he needs to make a serious effort to begin moving to either the B or the I quadrant quickly. A new attitude and a new educational process need to begin. Unless he gets lucky and wins the lottery or finds some rich woman to marry, he's on a course of working hard for the rest of his life. Doing your own thing. Another common pattern is someone going from the E to the S. During periods of massive downsizing and unemployment, some people get the message. Instead of looking for another job, they decide to start their own business. There's a boom in so-called home-based businesses. Many people make the decision to start their own business, do their own thing, and be their own boss. The career path looks like this, going from the E to the S. Of all the life paths, this is the one I feel for the most. In my opinion, being an S can be extremely rewarding and the most risky. I think the S quadrant is the hardest quadrant there is. The failure rates are high, and if you make it, being successful can be worse than failing. That's because if you're successful as an S, you'll work harder than if you were in any of the other quadrants, and you'll work harder for a very long time. The reason S's work the hardest is because they typically are the proverbial chief cook and bottle washer. They have to do or be responsible for all the jobs that are done by managers, many managers, and employees in a bigger company. An S, just starting out, often answers the phone, pays the bills, makes sales calls, tries to advertise on a small budget, handles customers, hires employees, fires employees, fills in when employees don't show up, talks to the taxman, fights off the government, and on and on and on. Personally, I cringe whenever I hear someone say that they're going to start their own business. I wish them well, yet I feel great concern for them. I've seen so many E's take their life savings or borrow money from friends and family to start their own business. And after 3 years or so of struggle and hard work, the business folds. And instead of their life savings growing, they have debt to pay off. Nationally, 9 out of 10 of these types of businesses fail in 5 years. One of the one that is remaining, 9 out of 10 of them fail in the next 5. So in other words, 99 out of 100 small businesses ultimately disappear in 10 years. I think the reason most fail in the first 5 years is due to the lack of experience and the lack of capital. The reason the one survivor often fails is the second 5 years isn't due to the lack of capital, but the lack of energy. The lack of energy. The hours of long, hard work finally get to the person. Many S's, they just burn out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are currently an S in your business and you're literally doing everything, you're wearing all the hats, you are constantly trying to figure out what to do next, okay? This is what he's talking about. He's speaking directly to you, okay? I'm so excited that you're here reading this with me, because it's not until you hear it from someone else or have it said in a different way that it probably hits you. It's about to go down, okay? Those who do survive seem to have become used to the idea of getting up, going to work, and working hard forever. That seems to be all they know and all they do. I have a friend whose parents have spent the last 45 years working long hours at the liquor store. As crime increased in the neighborhood, they had to put up steer bars on the doors and all the windows. Today, money is passed through a slot, much like a bank. But it saddens me to see them as virtual prisoners in their own business. From 10 in the morning until 2 the next morning, staring out from behind the bars. Many wise asses sell their business at their peak before they run out of steam to someone with energy and money. They take some time off and then they start something new. They keep doing their own thing and love it. The key is to know when to get out. Ooh, damn. Right there, that last paragraph. It's so important to know when to get out. It's so important. And sometimes you don't know when your peak is. Sometimes you don't know when you're at the all-time high, and that is the time to sell. Okay, that is the time to get out, because as soon as you hit that peak, okay, now that momentum is high, that energy is high, it's time to sell. Typically, that's when a lot of people that are so attached to what they've built or what they know, or they have nothing else to fall back into, or they don't have that headspace or that time to actually think about what they want. That's when they just keep going, and then that peak now becomes a valley, and then that valley becomes a, dang, what am I doing with my life? How can I get out of this? Damn, I hate waking up this early. Or why am I doing this? So yes, this is a very, very important chapter. We work with a lot of S's, and it's so important that we recognize that you don't have to be in that same grind for years. There's opportunity out there, and it's your call. It's your call. I'm gonna read this last part one more time. Many wise S's sell their business at their peak before they run out of steam to someone with energy and money. They take some time off and then start something new. They keep doing their own thing and they love it. The key is to know when to get out. So powerful, so powerful. The worst advice to give to your children. If you were born prior to 1913, then go to school, get good grades, find a safe and secure job was considered good advice. But for most of you, this is really bad advice. Why, do you ask? Well, the answer is found in taxes and in debt, okay? For most people who earn their income from the E quadrant, there are virtually no tax breaks left. Today in America, being an employee means that you are 50-50 partners with the government. That means that the government ultimately takes 50% or more of an employee's earning, and much of that before the employee even sees the paycheck. When you consider that the government offers you a tax break for going further into debt, the path to financial freedom is virtually impossible for most people in the E and the S quadrants. I often hear accountants tell clients who begin earning more income from the E quadrant to buy a bigger house so they can receive a bigger tax break. While that makes sense to someone on the left side of the cash flow quadrant, it makes absolutely no damn sense to someone on the right. Who pays the most taxes? The rich do not pay a lot of income taxes. Why? Well, simply because they don't earn their money as employees. The ultra rich know that the best way to avoid taxes legally is by generating income out of the B and I quadrants. If people earn money in the E quadrant, the only tax break that they're offered is to buy a bigger house and go into greater debt. Viewed from the right side of the cash flow quadrant, that isn't financially intelligent. To people on the right side, that's like saying, give me $1 and I'll give you 50 cents back. Taxes are unfair. I often hear people say, it's un-American not to pay taxes. Americans who say they seem to have forgotten their history. America was founded out of tax protest. Have they forgotten the famous Boston Tea Party of 1773? This rebellion sparked the Revolutionary War and was all about taxation. Taxation without representation. This rebellion was followed by Shays Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion, Fry's Rebellion, and the Tariff Wars, and many others throughout the history of the United States. There are 2 other famous tax revolts that weren't staged by Americans, but do demonstrate the passion with which people object to taxation. The story of William Tell is a story of tax protest. That's why he was forced to shoot the apple off his son's head. He was angry about taxes and refused to bow to the tax collector. His punishment was to put his son's life at risk with a target on his head, literally. And then there was Lady Godiva. She pleaded with her husband, the Earl of Mercia, to lower taxes in her town. Her husband said he would only lower the taxes if she would ride naked through the town. Lady Godiva, she took him up on that offer and rode naked around the town. Go ahead, Lady Godiva. Go ahead. Tax advantages. Taxes may be a necessity of modern civilization, but problems arise when taxes become abusive and mismanaged. As millions of baby boomers begin to retire, they will shift from the role of taxpayers to retirees and Social Security recipients. There will be a need to collect more taxes to support this shift. America and the other great nations will decline financially, and individuals with money will leave in search of countries that welcome their money instead of penalizing them for having it, which is happening in today's time. Like literally today, we're in Mexico right now. I mean, and we know many people that have left the United States because they can care less to pay taxes. They can care less about what's going on. What they're more concerned about is having the options, having the opportunities to go to somewhere new and be treated like royalty, okay? Because you are, 1. 2, their investments are safe. Their cash flow is safe. And most importantly, they're growing their assets and they're not getting penalized for that. So anyways, he's just showing this diagram here. On the right hand, you see that there's many tax advantages, and in the E and S quadrant on the left side, there's few tax advantages. Now he goes into a big mistake. A newspaper reporter once asked me how much money I made during the prior year. I replied, approximately $1 million. So he asked me, so how much tax did you actually pay? And then I said, nothing. The money that was made in capital gains, I was able to indefinitely defer paying those taxes. I sold 3 pieces of real estate and put them through a Section 1031 exchange under the U.S. Internal Revenue Code. I never touched the money. I just reinvested it back into a larger property. Sure enough, a few days later, the newspaper ran this story. Rich man makes $1 million and admits to paying nothing in taxes. For real. I did something like that. I did say something like that, but a few choice of words were missing, which distorted the whole entire message. I don't know if the reporter was being malicious or if he simply didn't understand what a 1031 exchange is. Whatever the reason was, it's a perfect example of different points of view coming from different quadrants. As I said, not all income is equal. Some income is much less taxed than others. Most people focus on income, not assets. The reporter actually earns his income up top, and then Robert was earning his income through assets. Cool. This is the diagram that he has here. Basically illustrates that. Today, I still hear people say, I'm going back to school so I can get a raise, or I'm working hard so I can get a promotion. Those are words or ideas of a person who is focusing on the income column of the financial statement or the E quadrant. Those are words of a person who will give half of that raise to the government and work harder and longer to do it. In the upcoming chapter, I'll explain how people on the right side of the cash flow quadrant utilize taxes as an asset instead of the liability it is for most people on the left side. It's not a matter of being unpatriotic, it's about fighting back legally to defend the right to keep as much money as possible. Countries where people don't protest their taxes often have depressed economies. Interesting. So the people that are the countries that don't protest their taxes, so the people that are not fighting legally to defend the right to keep their money, typically have a low economy. Get rich quickly. For Kim and me to go from homeless to financially free quickly meant earning our money in the B and I quadrants. In these quadrants, you can get rich quickly because you can avoid paying taxes legally. And by being able to keep more money and have that money work for us, we found freedom quickly. So how to get free? Debt and taxes are the main reasons most people never feel financially secure or achieve financial freedom. The path to security or freedom is found on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. You need to go beyond job security and know the difference between financial security and financial freedom. As you know, my highly educated dad was fixated on job security, as are most people of his generation. He assumed that job security meant financial security until, that is, he lost his job and he couldn't find another. My rich dad never talked about job security. He talked instead about financial freedom. The answer to finding the kind of security or freedom you desire can be found in observing the patterns found in the cash flow quadrant. People who follow this pattern are often good at performing their job. Many spent years in school and years on the job gaining experience. The problem is that they know little about the B quadrant or the I quadrant. Even if they have a retirement plan, they feel financially insecure because they've been trained only for job security. Knowledge is power. To become more financially secure, I suggest that in addition to performing their jobs in the E or S quadrants, individuals become educated in the B or I quadrants. By having confidence in their abilities on both sides of the cash flow quadrant, they'll naturally feel more secure, even if they only have a little bit of money. Knowledge is power. And when an opportunity presents itself, they will be prepared to act with confidence. That is why our market gave us two legs. That is why our maker gave us two legs. If we had only one leg, we would always feel wobbly and insecure. By having knowledge in two quadrants, one on the left and one on the right, we tend to feel more secure. People who know about their job or profession only have one leg. Every time the economic winds blow, they tend to wobble more than people with two legs. Interesting analogy there, Robert. The pattern for financial security. This is the pattern for financial security for an E, okay? Right here. You go from the E to the I. Instead of just putting your money into a retirement account and hoping for the best, this loop signifies that people feel confident in their education as both an investor and an employee. Just as we study at school to learn a job, I suggest you study to become a professional investor. The reporter who was upset about me making my $1 million in my asset column and not paying taxes never asked me the question, how did you make the $1 million? He never asked how. To me, that's the real question. Legally, avoiding taxes is easy. Making the million wasn't so easy. A second path to financial security could be from an E quadrant to the B quadrant. And that is what financial security looks like for an S. Going from the S quadrant to the I quadrant. The average American millionaire is self-employed, lives frugally, and invests for the long term. The pattern above reflects that financial life path. And he goes into these two. He goes into these two right here. You can see the path, this path, the S to the B, is often the path that many great entrepreneurs like Bill Gates actually take. It's not the easiest, but in my mind, it is one of the best, going from the S to the B. Okay. Two are better than one. Back in chapter 2, I discussed how the average rich person earns 70% of their income from the right side and less than 30% from the left side. I've found that no matter how much money people make, they will feel more secure if they operate in more than one quadrant. Financial security is having a secure footing on both sides of the cash flow quadrant. Millionaire firefighters. I have two friends who are examples of success on both sides of the cash flow quadrant. They have tremendous job security with benefits, and they have also achieved great financial wealth on the right side. Both of them are firefighters who work for the city government. They enjoy good, steady pay, excellent benefits and retirement plans, and they work only 2 days a week. 3 days a week, they work as professional investors. The remaining 2 days, they relax and spend time with their families. One buys old houses, fixes them up, and collects rent. He owns 45 houses that pay him $10,000 a month, net, after debt, taxes, maintenance, and management and insurance. He earns $3,500 a month as a firefighter, making his total monthly income more than $13,000 and his annual income about $150,000 and growing. He has 5 more years before retirement, and his goal is to have $200,000 a year in income at the age of 56. Not bad for a government employee with 4 kids. The other friend spends his time analyzing companies and taking major long-term positions in stocks and options. His portfolio is now more than $3 million. If he cashed it out and moved the money into an investment that earns 10% interest a year, he would have an income approximately of $300,000 per year for life, even taking into account average market fluctuations. Again, not bad for a government employee with 2 kids. Both friends have enough passive income from their 20 years of investing to have retired by the age of 40. But they both enjoy their work and want to retire with full benefits. Then they'll be free to enjoy the benefits of success gained from both sides of the cash flow quadrant. Money alone does not bring security. I have met many people who have made millions in their retirement accounts and still feel insecure. Why? Because it's money generated from their job or business. They often have the money invested in a retirement account, but know little to nothing about the subject of investments. If the money disappears and their working days are over, what do they do then? In times of great economic change, there are always great transfers of wealth. Even if you don't have much money, it's important to invest in your education because when the changes do come, you'll be better prepared to handle them. Don't be caught up, unaware, and afraid. As I said, no one can predict what will happen, so it's best to be prepared for whatever happens. And that means getting educated right now. The pattern for financial freedom. This is the pattern my rich dad recommended. It is the path to financial freedom. This is true financial freedom because in the B quadrant, people who are working for you, and in the I quadrant, your money is working for you. So you are free to work or not work. Your knowledge in these two quadrants has brought you complete physical freedom from work. If you look at the ultra rich, this is their pattern. The loop around the B and the I signifies the income pattern of people like Bill Gates, Rupert Murdoch, and Warren Buffett. A quick word of caution. The B quadrant is much different from the I quadrant. I've seen many successful Bs sell their businesses for millions, and their newfound wealth goes to their head. They tend to think that their dollars are a measure of their IQ, so they swagger on down to the I quadrant and lose it all. The game and rules are different in all of the quadrants, which is why I recommend education over any ego trip. I agree with you, Robert. Just as in the case of financial security, having two quadrants gives you greater stability in the world of financial freedom. A choice of path. The preceding patterns are the different financial paths people can choose. Unfortunately, most people choose the path of job security. When the economy starts wobbling, they cling ever more desperately to job security and wind up spending their lives pursuing it. At a minimum, I recommend becoming educated in financial security, which is feeling confident about your job and feeling confident about your ability to invest in good and bad times. A big secret is that true investors make money in the bad markets. They make their money because the non-investors are panicking and selling when they should be buying. I'm not afraid of the possible comings economic changes, because that means wealth is being transferred. So when the market is low, or when things are looking bad, or depression, or recession and stuff, that is where the millions are made. And that is literally where people get liquid. Okay, they acquire liquidity, and now they're able to fund when everything's like 50% off or 70% off. Okay, which is awesome. He goes into saying, your boss cannot make you rich. A friend of mine sold his company, and on the day of the sale, put more than $15 million into his bank account. On the other hand, his employees had to look for new jobs. At the farewell party, which was filled with tears, there were also undercurrents of extreme anger and resentment. Although he'd paid them very well for years, most were financially no better off on their last day of work than they were on their first day of work. Many people realized that the owner of the company had become rich while they spent all those years collecting their paychecks and paying bills. The reality is that your boss's job is not to make you rich. Your boss's job is to make sure that you get a paycheck. It's your job to become rich if you want to. And that job begins the moment you receive your paycheck. If you have the poor money management skills, then all the money in the world wouldn't save you. If you budget your money wisely and learn about either the B or the I quadrant, then you're on your own path to great personal fortune. And most importantly, freedom. Freedom. My rich dad used to say to his son and me that the only difference between a rich person and a poor person is what they do on their spare time. I agree with that statement. I realize that people are busier than ever and free time is more and more precious. Yet I believe that if you're going to be busy anyway, be busy on both sides of the cash flow quadrant. If you don't do that, you'll have a better chance of eventually finding more free time and more financial freedom. When at work, work hard. But remember that what you do after work with your paycheck and your spare time will determine your future. So if you work hard on the left side, you'll work hard forever. If you work hard on the right side, you have a chance of finding freedom. The path I recommend. I'm often asked by people in the E and S quadrants, what would you recommend? I recommend the same path my rich dad recommended to me, all right? The same path that people like Ross Perot and Bill Gates took. The path looks like this. Whoa, okay? And this one is just take a screenshot of this. It's a bit of a doozy. E going to the B, S going to the B, and then when you're in the B, going to the I. Occasionally people reply, but I'd rather be an investor. To which I say, then go to the I quadrant. If you have plenty of money and lots of free time, go straight into the I quadrant. But if you don't have an abundance of time and money, the path my rich dad recommended is way safer. I's invest in B's. In most cases, people do not have an abundance of time and money, so they ask another question. Why do you recommend the B quadrant first? This discussion usually takes an hour or so, but I'll just summarize my reasons in the next few lines. 1, experience and education. If you are first successful as a B, you'll have a better chance of developing into a powerful I. If you first develop a solid business sense, you can become a better investor. You'll be better able to identify other good Bs. True investors invest in successful Bs with stable business systems. It's risky to invest in E or an S who doesn't know the difference between a system and a product, or who lacks excellent leadership skills. 2, cash flow. If you have a business that is up and running, and then you should then have the free time and the cash flow to support the ups and downs of the I quadrant. Many times I meet people from the E and S quadrants who are so tight on cash that they can't afford to take any kind of financial loss. One market swing and they're wiped out because they operate financially on the red line. The reality is that investing is capital and knowledge intensive. Sometimes it takes lots of capital and requires lots of time to gain the necessary knowledge. Many successful investors have lost many times before winning. Successful people know that success is a poor teacher. Successful people know that success is a poor teacher. Learning comes from making mistakes, and in the I quadrant, mistakes cost money. If you lack both the knowledge and capital, it's financial suicide to try to become an investor. By developing the skills of becoming a good B first, you'll also be providing the cash flow necessary to help you become a good investor. The business you develop as a B will provide the cash to support you as you gain the education to become a good investor. Once you have gained the knowledge to become a successful investor, you'll understand how I can say, it does not always take money to make money. So here is some good news. The good news is that it's easier than ever before to be successful in the B quadrant because of technology. although it's not as easy as just getting a minimum wage job, the systems are in place now for more and more people to find financial success as bees. Powerful, 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 powerful chapter, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it had a lot. It had a lot in there, and I gotta tell you, it was an ego check. Okay, especially the parts of the S's. Like, we work with so many S's. I consider myself an S as well, and it's sometimes hard to let go of something that you've put your hard-earned time and your hard work and time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into, and then just you get attached to that to a degree, and then to the degree that you're able to disconnect yourself from that and then convert it into a system where someone can actually take that and perform that same task as good or even better than you. Now you've removed yourself, you've accumulated time, and you've also accumulated a lot of amazing resources, because now it falls on you. Can you become a leader? Can you guide someone? Can you manage that person well? Can that person grow through your leadership and your guidance and your way of getting them through that task or that project? So those are all key skills that you got to learn in the S quadrant. And then getting into the B quadrant is now, as a business owner, looking into your business, from a high level point of view, like, what is required? How can you treat this as like a checkboard, or a chessboard? How can you move the pieces in the right way so you can always hit that checkmate? Or how can you actually create something that will produce exactly the result that you want? All of that takes time, energy, skill, and being able to understand what is right and what is wrong. So, so many nuggets. I am so pumped to share this with the Billionaire Inner Circle. We meet weekly, and we have such a great time really dissecting these chapters and learning in depth on this type of information, because we live in an information age. If you are not connecting yourself with people that are smarter than you, that have the results that you want, or that are actually committed to learning and taking the time and the energy and apply that knowledge, then you're missing out on a lot of wealth that should be transferred your way. The rich get richer, not just because taxes and all that, obviously that has to do a lot with it, but they are associated with people that are in the actual knows, the know-hows, and they know when to get in and when to get out. With that, I encourage you to check out the Billionaire Inner Circle, because we are starting something really, really powerful that can just light up your future, light up your path into the I quadrant. So most importantly, I just want to make sure that you are aware of the options that you do have available to you. We live in 2022 right now. If you're watching this video, if it's not 2022, you're probably like, okay, 5 years in, 10 years out, awesome. Right now is probably the biggest opportunity that we have available at the tips of our fingertips, because literally just technology has allowed us to open the doors to so many great paths, and creating our own ability to become investors. And he mentions many times in the book, especially in this chapter, that in order for you to become an investor, you have to put in the time, the cash, and the effort, the knowledge to actually apply the right fundamentals. Because there's many people that try to go from an E to an I and then they mess up. So what are you willing to do? How are you willing to pay that price? Are you going to do it on your own? Are you a lone wolf in that sense? Awesome. Wish you the best. Okay. if you're willing and able to pay the price and be part of something that's really, really big, and we're all in together and we're really making a change together, I encourage you to check out the Billionaire Inner Circle, because that is what we're about. Mission driven, vision driven. We are all winning. And most importantly, that passive income, baby. Passive income. That's where it's at. Earned income is the highest taxed income there is. Stop it. Actually, don't. Continue to earn it, but convert it into passive income. And we'll teach you how to do that in the Inner Circle. Super excited that you're here. Super excited that you watched this whole entire video, because it takes not being arrogant. It takes the ability to want to learn, and it takes a degree of wisdom, okay, to want to learn. So I celebrate you. This is for you. Okay, I celebrate you and everything that's to come. So without further ado, have a blessed day. Talk to you soon. See you later.